All right, cool. So we're gonna go under the basics, and the main thing I'm making this video is to help me understand, help you all understand what it means for the government to actually shut down. So what's it's closing, what funding is being stopped, or to understand the basics, the history of it, and real world impact. So we're just gonna jump right in. And this whole video is all about doing a deep dive. While I'm learning, you may learn a thing or two as well. So let's jump right into it. I'm going to share a screen as well. All right, cool. So we're going to go into like the investigator style. Let's start searching different stuff, questions that we may have, and just a couple questions that I wrote down and I got here that I am going to try to find the answers to, like the main thing, what exactly causes the government to shut down. All right, let's see. And we're going to try to stay in we're going to stay away from Wikipedia and stuff like that. We might go into different stuff like that. Organizations, try to stay away from news sources and find actual facts. And we're going to see what exactly causes the government to shut down. That bothers me. And we use different sources. So, from my understanding of different things that I've seen, it's both Republican Party and Democrat Party at a gridlock on what to actually pass. And like I said, this is just a deep dive and to understand what is actually going on. So why did the government shut down? Congress unable to pass appropriation bills that fund the operations of federal agencies and programs. And 12 appropriations bills that are designed to fund the government until the conclusion of this year, which ends. Don't really want that. Let's see what they got on here from Congress. Let's see. The government shuts down. The Congress is unable to pass appropriation bills that fund the operations of. These are 12 appropriation bills are designed to fund the government until the conclusion of each fiscal year. So they needed to decide by October 1st because it ended on September 30th. So that was day one. And we are still going through it. It is October 13th. So here's a little government service and programs are impacted. Partial or full during 2018-2019. That was Trump's last term. Food and Drug Administration suspended routine inspections, increased public health and national park services. Government programs remain uninterrupted down. So what services do not stop? Let's see. Essential service related to national security, which of course national security, we don't want that. Safety like inpatient emergency medical care, air traffic control, law enforcement, border security, disaster aid, which is all stuff that we need. Border security, number one. Disaster aid, yes. Power grid maintenance. Services independent of annual appropriation bills. Like I said, this is just a live deep dive. I don't have any notes except for the questions that I wrote down. What I wanted to state on topic. 16th District of California. Do I really want to be on that one? All right, let's keep on looking around and see what we can find. All right, USA facts, of course. They might tell me all the facts. Everything you need to know about a government shutdown. Let's see. What does the government shutdown occur when Congress fails to pass or the president refuses to sign a spending bill to fund the government's operations? Congress and continuing resolutions will provide short-term funding while negotiations for a long-term solution continue. How did the 2019 shutdown last? So that last one lasted 34 days. Let's see. A bunch of stuff that we do not want to see. All right. So basically, the government shutdown occurs when Congress fails to pass or the president refuses to sign a spending bill. And they had up to September 30th to figure that out. October 1st, government was shut down. And different agencies, all their funding got stopped. So let's look into that. So let's look up what different agencies stopped getting government shutdown. All right, let's look at this. Shutdown feels different in states. Maryland matters. Wars, capital leaders, federal government shutdown, what it means for states. All right, let's look at this. After lawmakers, the U.S. federal government shut down October 1st after lawmakers failed to resolve a budget deadlock, halting some federal operations and putting approximately 750,000 employees on unpaid leave, triggered by partisan clashes over funding beyond September 30th. The shutdown has created uncertainty for many federal programs, especially military. Maybe in part of the military. I was never active duty or anything like that. I'm National Guard, but to talk to some of my friends that or potentially not going to get paid because of this, but I'm sure Trump will come through and make sure that they get taken care of. So let's see, mandatory programs. However, for certain programs, funds for the first quarter of fiscal year, federal fiscal year 2026 were included in the full year continuing appropriations. Federal employees. See retroactive pay once the government reopens. So they are going to get paid. All employees that were furloughed. How many employees were actually furloughed? Let's go back and see. How many federal employees are furloughed due to the shutdown? Let's get an actual number. Let's see. Cuts ahead for federal workers. Federal News Network. All right, Vice President. Want to do the cuts. Federal workforce. The longer the government shutdown goes on, adding to uncertainty. Let's see what our VP says. There we go. Government shutdown, which goes far beyond what actually happened. Negotiation helps with these benefits. The government must reopen. Our negotiations are virtual, non-existent. Of course, everybody's going to point the fingers, but and on all these videos, I'm not choosing side or anything like that. I have my own opinions, but I'm going to keep that to myself. That way I can be on all sides, just reporting the facts and understanding what is actually going on. That way everybody that's watching and myself can learn a little something or two about what's actually going on in our great country. 4,200. Friday lawyers when the government wrote that and 4,200 employees across at least 7 agencies began receiving reduction in force. Yeah, I'm already that. All right, let's see. And I'm not going to watch any videos or anything like that, just so we don't get any copyrights or anything like that that stops these videos from coming out. So 41 shutdown layoffs. So of course, if there's no money, they got to start sending people home. I mean, it's just business there. Unfortunately, this has affected people working in the government, people that rely on money, just like everybody that's private, working for businesses, working for different companies get paid. Like these people expect to get paid, which sort of unfair to them, but hey, All right, let's see what kind of deadlines trigger shutdowns. And that deadline was September 30th. Everything had to continue a resolution and to get resolved. So let's see what deadlines trigger shutdowns. And it should have been September 30th, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, for the U.S. government shutdown triggered by the figure of Congress to pass annual spending legislation before the start of the new fiscal year on October 1st. So they had until September 30th. So if the deadline approaches and a long-term spending agreement has not been reached, Congress can pass a short-term temporary measure called a continuing resolution. This funds the government at its current level for a set period, giving lawmakers more time to negotiate the full budget. So they have the option of passing this, but Congress has to agree on it. That way they give themselves a little bit more time to figure out what they're actually going to do. So is there actually a continuing resolution in place now? There it goes. Now, continuing resolution. Let's see. October 13th, there is no continuing resolution in place, and the federal government shutdown began. All right. Failed continuing resolutions. Since the start of the shutdown, Senate has voted several times on two competing, but both proposals have failed. House passed Republican continuing resolution passed by the House, supported by most Senate Republicans. This measure would extend government funding through November 21st. It failed to get 60 votes, so we need 60 votes for a continuing resolution to pass. But that was not the case because we did not get that. So a Democratic continuing resolution. This proposal would fund the government through October 31st, and it includes permanent extension of Enhanced Affordable Care Act. So they want, all right, let's see, we got different positions. Let's see our source on this. This is all AI. AI responses may include information may be depending on location or individual circumstances. AI. All right, Democratic position. Democrats are insisting that an extension of the ACA subsidies be included in the CR. They warn that premiums will increase significantly if the credits expire. And the Republican position is Republicans are arguing that policy changes like the ACA tax credit extension do not belong in a short-term spending bill. They have said they will not negotiate on the issue until Democrats vote to reopen the government. Sorry, so let's look a little into this ACA, Affordable Care Act. So Democrats want this, Republicans say nay. All right, thanks to know what does Affordable Care intend to do? Expanded health care insurance coverage by including health insurance covered by creating the health insurance marketplace and expanding Medicaid while implementing rules like protecting people with pre-existing conditions, mandating health benefits. So that's the big fight right now. That's what it's looking like. It's all about this Affordable Care Act. All right, let's look a little bit into that. Is the Affordable Affordable Care Act effective? Is it really effective? Yes, it works to expand health coverage. Where there's a good, there's also a bad somewhere. Pros and cons of Obamacare. Let's look into it. More Americans have health insurance. I personally think if somebody can work and get some health insurance, they should be doing that, like I do. But hey, so for many people, insurance company must now spend at least 80% of insurance premiums on medical care and improvements. many people have to pay higher premiums. Insurance companies can offer a wider range of benefits. You can be fined if you don't have insurance. The goal of Obamacare is for people to be insured year-round. If you're uninsured and don't obtain an exemption, you must pay a modest fee. So if you don't have insurance, how about you go get a job and get insurance? Taxes are going up as a result of the ACA. Several new taxes were passed into law to help pay for the ACA, including taxes on medical device and pharmaceutical sales. They're cutting employee hours to avoid covering employees. All right. All right, let's see. To get ACA insurance, you must live in the U.S., be a U.S. citizen or lawfully present immigrant, and not be incarcerated or enrolled in Medicare. You will leave the marketplace. Looks like this is available to everybody. Must meet the general eligibility requirements. Must live in the United States. Must be a U.S. citizen, U.S. national, or a lawfully present immigrant. Must not be currently incarcerated or in prison or jail. Must not be enrolled in Medicare. Employer coverage must not have access to affordable coverage through an employer or be eligible for Medicaid or the Children's Health Insurance Program. So, all right, well, let's look into well, that's what the big issue is right now. Democrats want it, Republicans do not. All right, my other thing is I wanted to look into how many times the government actually shut down. Let's see. Government shutdowns. We're not looking on Wikipedia, history.com. All right, let's see. In the United States, a government shutdown happens when there's a gap in federal funding. All right, let's see here. Here's a breakdown of each shutdown. November 20th to the 23rd, President Ronald Reagan triggered the first government shutdown when he vetoed a funding bill because he thought it should have cut more from domestic spending. The result, U.S. government furloughed 241,000 federal employees. This one ended after only a few days, so he only had 3 days there. September 30th through October 2nd, 1982. Congress caused another shutdown by missing the deadline to pass the government spending bill, even though it had already agreed on the terms for the bill. New York Times reported that Congress missed the deadline because both major parties had events they didn't want to miss. All right, so we shut the government down for a fundraiser and a barbecue. Perfect. October 3rd to the 5th, 1984. The U.S. government had two back-to-back funding gaps in 1984, one from September 30th to October 3rd, and another from October 3rd to the 5th. Congress and President Reagan averted a shutdown during the first gap by passing a temporary extension, but then missed their new deadline again, triggering a brief half-a-day shutdown in which the government furloughed around 500,000 employees. In 1986, this one's from October 16th to the 18th. 1986 shutdown played out much like one in 1984. Government furloughed about 500,000 federal employees for half a day. Democrats conceded to Ronald Reagan's demands in order to end the shutdown. All right, and the 5th to the 9th, 1990, President Bush accepted the nomination in 1988 Republican Convention, National Convention. He said, read my lips, no new taxes. Yes, the secret decision to raise taxes, transparency, House minority. November 13th to 1995. Up to now, government. 1995, they started to get longer. In November, the government furloughed 800,000 federal employees after getting grit. Now the Speaker of the House sent President Bill Clinton a funding bill he expected he'd veto because it raised Medicare premiums and cut environmental regulations. December 15th to January 6th. So this is all. A month after November shutdown, another standoff between Clinton. It's a much longer shutdown. January 6th, the government furloughed 280,000 workers. It was the first time a funding gap had shut down the government for more than a week. They had a backlog of 200,000 passport applications to process. If I'm not mistaken, passport applications are slowing down now because of our shutdown. So let's see, it's from 30th to the 17th, 19th to the 22nd. Let's see. Battle between Democrats and Republicans in Congress over, oh, look at that, Affordable Care Act, which President Obama has signed into law in 2010. The president and his fellow Democrats opposed the Republican demands to defund the act. When it to pass, the funding expired. The government furloughed 800,000 workers. The shutdown ended weeks later when Obama signed a bill that made minor changes to the ACA but did not include the major defunding the Republicans had wanted. So we're getting closer to this one. So we shut down the government back in 2013. We're on the same days. All right. 22nd, 2018, and the government shut down. Democrats and Congress tried to force Republicans to protect beneficiaries of deferred action for childhood arrivals or DACA. When President Obama created the DACA program in 2012 to allow undocumented people who came into the United States as children to remain in the country. In 2017, President Donald Trump administration announced a plan to phase out the program to end the shutdown. The Republican agrees to vote on DACA later that year. Allow undocumented people who came to the United States as children to remain in the country. Won't say anything about that. Next one, December 21st to January 25th. In late 2018, another funding gap triggered the longest shutdown in U.S. history. That time, the funding government was over Trump's proposed plan to build a wall along the U.S. border with Mexico. This shutdown led the government to furlough 800,000 federal workers. Democrats refused to fund the wall. Ultimately, Republicans relented. The shutdown ended a month after it began, with no funding in place for a border wall. All right, so let's count these up. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 other times have the government actually shut down. And we are making it number 10 now. So let's see. When the government shut down, the government actually shuts down. What stays open and what closes? Let's look at this. During the shutdown, what stays open? So national security, active duty military personnel, federal law enforcement, and border protection agents continue to work. Healthcare, postal services, air traffic, Social Security payments continue, but services like issuance and new applications may experience delays. Federal courts, emergency response, FEMA, some visas, and passports, which the actual happened in one that we read before, was at 200,000 passport applications were delayed. What closes or is disrupted? So national parks and museums, accessible visitor centers, restrooms, and garbage services may be unavailable due to the lack of staffing. So national parks and museums, government buildings. So the tours, I remember I saw a video of different news services going through the, what was the U.S. Cap? Was it U.S. Capitol? It was something. I got to find it. You know, like, hey, where is everybody looking behind desk and everything like that? Let's see, taxpayer services. Most IRS operations are suspended, leading to delays in tax funds. I wonder if the one here in my city is closed. That's probably something to look into. Safety inspections. Food safety inspections by the FDA and other regulatory activities, such as environmental protection inspections by the EPA are reduced or stopped. So our safety inspections for food safety, clinical trials, National Institutes of Health is forced to delay new clinical trials. Small business loans, the stops processing new business loans. Oof, sorry, scammers. Small business loans won't go out. Housing assistance, Federal Housing Administration (FHA) stops issuing some new mortgages. Food assistance, the WIC program, particularly vulnerable to funding shortfalls and extended shutdown. Impact on federal employees. So we already talked about this. Furloughed workers, federal employees in non-essential roles are placed on temporary unpaid leave. 2019 law guarantees they receive back pay when the government reopens. Even though they do get back pay, businesses or credit people do not want to hear about, oh, I'll get back pay. They want their money now. I'm sure everybody here understands that the rent's not going to wait. Freaking mortgage is not going to wait. Your car note's not going to wait. So that is a setback for those people that are furloughed. So essential workers, essential employees like military, law enforcement must continue working without pay until the shutdown ends. Oof. Would you actually work without pay? All right, so that's what actually stays open and what closes. Let's see what kind of news articles we have on this. Politico. Yeah. All right, what closes during a government shutdown? Information on services during partial government. So what kind of effects does this have on the economy? So how much money does a shutdown cost the economy daily? Blah. Thank you, Google, for fixing my mistakes. So let's see what daily costs of a shutdown. So immediate daily costs furlough pay. Cost of compensating furlough federal workers could be approximately $400 million per day. While these workers generally receive back pay once the government reopens, their loss of income during the shutdown reduces consumer spending and creates financial difficulty. So imagine those people that are going paycheck to paycheck. Unfortunately, those are the people that are getting hit the hardest with this. So they will get paid back, but they need to eat now. They need to live now. So really big step back for them. Lost economic output. Some estimates suggest that a shutdown can cost the broader U.S. economy approximately $15 billion per week or over $2 billion per day in economic output. Contracts and reduced consumer spending, halting federal loans and contracts. So the SBA stops processing loan applications during the shutdown, which can negatively affect small businesses. For example, 2018-19 shutdown delayed over $2 billion in loans. So what kind of long-term effects can we see? Unrecoverable output, while a bounce back in economic growth often occurs after shutdown. The CBO estimated that 2019 shutdown results in a permanent economic loss of about $3 billion. So we got decreased business activity, damaged investor confidence, delayed economic data, loss of tourism revenues. So all these national parks, museums, other national sites that are closing down that people are, wanting to go to, but they can't or won't, that'll hit us. So U.S. Travel Association estimated that 2025 shutdown cost the travel industry $1 billion in lost spending and declining work morale, because who wants to get paid for who wants to work without getting paid? I know I don't. I know nobody else wants to either. Nobody's giving their time out for free. So imagine having to go into work and not getting paid. All right, so what's going to solve this? What can solve this government? Let's see here. What can solve this government shutdown? Show me more legislation to end the shutdown. We need a continuing resolution that has been denied twice already, one on the Democratic side and one on the Republican side. Both have been denied, and both looks like for the same reason, the Affordable Care Act. One wants it, one does not. And political agreement, we negotiate. Government shutdown occurs because of political impasse over budgetary and policy issues. Therefore, a resolution ultimately depends on political leaders compromising to pass one of the aforementioned funding measures. Negotiation, bipartisan support, recent precedent. All right. Let's see, there are 12 annual appropriation bills that fund different parts of the federal government, and the president can agree on all 12 bills. They can be passed either individually or into larger omnibus legislation to fund the government for the full fiscal year. So we can either continue a resolution, like I said, which have been denied twice, or appropriation bills need to be signed. How the current shutdown began. The current shutdown began October 1st. Congress failed to pass appropriation bills for the new fiscal year, and has continued to be shut down because 2 continuing resolutions have been denied. All right, so that's pretty much the gist of it. We kind of got into it a bit. We talked about what actually caused the government to shut down, how many times it happened in the past. We talked about, kind of went through each one of those in the past, gave a broad little summary of it, and who gets affected by this shutdown, what businesses, what businesses and what federal agencies close or stay open, and also talk about the effect on those working without getting paid, or those federal employees that are furloughed. So a little bit to think about there. Everybody can have their own opinion about it. Everybody can, talk about it or whatever. I'm just going to go through it and, like this video, just talk about what I see and what I find out. And it's mainly for me to find out what's actually happening in the world and kind of have a better understanding on it, rather than just taking one side or the other side to actually, do my own research. So if you like this video, this is kind of what we're going to do. If you got any topics that you want to learn about or anything like that, let me know. Put them in the comment section. That way I can, get some ideas on what to research and go through a deep dive while on this live. So if you like the content, first video, so we'll keep it nice, okay? And make sure you like, subscribe, and then we can start putting out some more videos. I'm going to try to shoot for 3 videos a week and see how this goes. Thanks.